Kicking off the build with a little Lapras layout. We are moving all the chains from the design board onto the welding table. First step in the welding process is tacking all of the chain interlinks to make sure that each of the individual parts can hold their forms. As we have laid out here, one side of Lapras, and we'll skip having to weld the other side because it's the same thing. Once everything is welded, we will go ahead and start adding them on. I have gone ahead and stacked up all of the side pieces so that we can properly line them up, and I'm still tweaking a few things here to get the final design because I was creating this video while I was still designing Lapras. This is the first time that I've made this sculpture, so there's a little kinks talks walks. I can't talk. Let me see if I can get my voice back to do this other side. And it seems like we are getting a little smoother in here. Both sides are welded on, and now we are going to move on to the fins. We have some larger fins for the front and some smaller fins for the back. Going to get the left side lined up first, make sure that everything is how we want it positioned, and then we will tack the right side afterwards. With Lapras, we have the big fins in the front, kind of holding them up, and then the small fins are way back in the back. Definitely a bit out of practice doing these recordings, but hang with me as we tackle the head. We add a 4-link onto the side with a 2-link for the ears, and then we repeat that on the other side as well, just doing a quick tack. Ouch. I need new gloves because these have gotten their well-worn time wear. They burn my fingertips. I still have a scar from this. Going to cut off the end of the horn here and weld it, grind it up, and there is our Lapras without its shell. I had a few different design ideas how I wanted to do this, and I think that I'm pretty happy with how this design turned out. Initially, I was planning on making the chains go the other direction, similar to how I'm going to put the shell on here. However, I wanted to have a different look between the shell and the main body. So I decided to do the shell vertical and the body horizontal, just so it gives them some different looks. We are adding the different pieces here, which I think is a 12, 8, and 4 for the main part of the shell. And then we take these 2 little 3-link pieces here, add some quick tacks, and then we are going to add them onto the bottom of the shell to connect it to the main body. Once we have those on there, we can start adding on Lapras's different spikes. I just used some single links for these, 3 down the middle, 2 on the sides, and then 1 more on the sort of far downside. But gotta make sure that they get all lined up here first. Catching some of the iterative process here, I did go back and add this additional 4-link here onto the side just to fill out Lapras's body a little bit more. And that is going to give us the final raw chain design. So it is time to clean it up and then start adding the paint. Going to start off with the angle grinder and a ceramic flap disc to do the main portions of the grinding, not welding anymore. And that's just going to clean up all the heavier welds. Then I go back through with the Dremel and clean the sort of tighter spots to get to that I was not able to with the angle grinder. Let's take one more quick look at Lapras before we start adding the paint, because it does add quite a bit more character, but I think it's pretty cool to see what these sculptures look like in their raw chain form. A lot of times I don't actually know how these are going to look before I start making them because I can only lay out so much on a flat surface. So I have a general idea, but this is really my first look on what the sculpture looks like too. And I just wanted to share that because I think it's pretty freaking cool. So with that, I think we have enough of a look on our raw sculpture, and let's get to the paint. Starting out here with a spray painted base blue, and then going back to add the yellows and grays for the finer details. Gonna start out with the head here. Yellow is always a harder color to paint with, and I usually have to go through and do a few different layers of it. Even on this blue, the blue comes through on the yellow. So it did take a couple extra layers, but we make sure to get the belly as well as the underside of each of the fins. And the yellow actually comes onto the front of some of those fins as well. So gotta make sure to get all those finer little details that really bring the sculpture to life. Once we're done with the yellows, we move on to the grays for the shell, getting that light gray color. I did have to experiment around with this a little bit because once it dried, it was a little too light, but there we go. We have our final Lapras. It's painted bike chain form. Would love to hear your thoughts on how this sculpture turned out down in the comment section below. And just a cool side note is that Game Rant actually ended up doing an article on this particular sculpture from a Reddit post. So I have that article linked down below if you want to check it out. Additionally, there are links to my Ko-Fi page where I have the full gallery. So all that stuff will be down in the description. Hope you enjoyed watching the build, and here's our final Lapras. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more.